In the 1600s, the island at the mouth of the Hudson didn't feel like a city. It felt like the beginning of something uncertain. Dense forests pressed close to the shoreline. The tides moved in and out like breath. This was Lenapeland, filled with trade routes and life long before Europeans arrived. But to distant empires across the Atlantic, Manhattan became something else: a foothold, a prize, a gateway into a continent. The story begins quietly. In 1609, Henry Hudson sailed into the river that would later bear his name. His crew stepped onto a wooded tidal shore alive with movement. Canoes in the water, smoke rising in the distance, trade already flowing through indigenous networks. There was no conquest, no battle, just an arrival. But once merchants heard of furs, once investors smelled profit, the quiet could not last. The Dutch moved in through the Dutch West India Company, seeking control of trade. In 1626, Dutch officials secured Manhattan in an exchange later remembered as 24 guilders worth of goods. The number became legend, but the reality was more complicated. Two cultures understood land in different ways. What the Dutch believed was a purchase may have been seen as something else entirely. Still, the Dutch gained their foothold, and they began to build. Early New Amsterdam was not elegant. It was hard labor. Settlers felled thick forests with hand axes, dragged logs through mud, raised rough houses, warehouses, and wooden defenses. Smoke hung in the air. Timber cracked and splintered. The settlement grew slowly, plank by plank. At the island's southern tip, Fort Amsterdam rose in earth and timber, guarding the harbor. Soldiers watched the shifting tides and the ships beyond. It was the colony's shield and its message: we are here to stay. But life in New Amsterdam was fragile. Trade with indigenous nations was essential, yet tensions over land and power made peace unstable. Treaties were signed, often from exhaustion more than trust. And as the colony expanded, another shadow deepened. By the mid-1600s, enslaved Africans were brought into New Amsterdam in increasing numbers. Sold as property, or forced labor became part of the docks, farms, roads, and households. Bondage was woven into the city's foundations early, shaping its future from the start. Inside a typical home, life was modest and crowded, a single room warmed by a brick hearth. Families rose early. Children fetched water. Adults mended nets, cut firewood, prepared food for winter. Survival was the rhythm of the settlement. Then, in 1664, everything changed. English warships drifted into the harbor. Cannons aimed at the Dutch fort. The colony was outnumbered and divided. Resistance faded. New Amsterdam surrendered without a battle. And with a quiet transfer of power came a new name: New York. In 1667, the Treaty of Breda sealed the change. The Dutch ceded the colony to England, trading it for distant gains elsewhere. Diplomacy fixed New York on the English side of empire, but history flickered once more. In 1673, Dutch ships returned and reclaimed the city, renaming it New Orange. Old banners rose again for one restless year. Then another treaty returned it to England. New Orange became New York once more. By the late 1600s, the city was growing quickly. Brick houses rose along muddy streets. Ships crowded the docks with Atlantic trade. Sugar, tobacco, furs, goods flowing through empire. Dutch influence still lingered in steep gables and heavy beams, even as English rule took hold. The old defensive wall marked the settlement's edge, along what would become Wall Street. Pearl Street curved along the shoreline, busy with merchants, craftsmen, sailors. By century's end, New York was no longer just a trading post. It was a crossroads, a city shaped by ambition and survival, by conquest and diplomacy, by cultures colliding and blending, by freedom and bondage existing side by side from the beginning, a restless place at the edge of a vast continent, waiting to become something even larger than itself.